Yeah, hi. Good evening, all. So now I am going to give the demo on the third. It was the third demo where it includes of the sessions that are covered in the week three. So now I am going to start the demo. So at first stage, we have I will show you how I have done, and we show the entire flow and the transaction, how it is happening step by step clearly. Like until week two, we have created normal structure of the project, and then after we have created like poser classes as well. But in that we have declared only two fields, right? Where there are only two fields like this double private double amount and private string currency from the postman. So we are only validating these two fields and where we are trying to insert it. So now the requirement is where we pass the parameters of user and the payment, and we have different fields in it for the user class and for the payment class. And the first requirement is uh, this amount should not be uh, negative, and that is the one thing we are going to check it. And the other thing is that uh, the transaction should not be a duplicate, right? So whenever the user used to perform the same transaction again, like the same ID, same merchant transaction reference, so it should throw the duplicate transaction reference. So that is the requirement we should work on, and that is the implementation that I have already done. But I'm going to give you the demo exactly like how we have done on that. So first thing is uh, before we have we there are like three steps are involved, like how we are going to improve the code step by step. First thing is we are reading the values from the application or properties. That is the first stage. And then after we are going to reduce the code so that we read those values from the DB. And since those values are static, they are not changing frequently. So instead of fetching the data in the database, so we can store the data in the Redis, and we can fetch them from the Redis, the temporary location, so that the accessing level it will be very faster when compared with the database. So that is how that is the flow, and that is the step by step that we are going to perform uh, code like from one level to the other level. So let me see once it is recording or not. Yeah, it's recording. So I will go to the code. Before at the week two, until week two, we have only took the amount and currency, and we are checking these fields. And after that, from the SQL workbench, we have created the database as well. Let me open the SQL workbench. SQL workbench, okay, it's already there here, I think. Mm, My SQL workbench. It's loading. Yeah. So we have connected to the database actually, where we have created different tables as per the requirement. So let it be loaded. So let's go here. So we have created the Pojo classes first. So these are the poser classes which we have the user and the payment as the poser classes. If you go to the payment class, we have like these fields in the payment class, and in the user class we have these fields in the user class. So now the first requirement is uh, checking the transaction is not a duplicate transaction. Like if he is trying to do again with the same transaction reference ID, so we should throw the duplicate transaction reference. So we should throw the exception, right? So that is what we have done actually here. Uh, I will show you the code like step by step. But yeah, before that, yeah, this is one thing. We'll run this. Yeah, here we are. So let's go here. So I will show you like exactly how we have done. You go to this service rental class, exception handling. So you go to this application local dot properties. These properties. So in the application local dot properties, like we have declared this validator dot rules. So as I have said, right, like before, first thing is like we are reading these validation rules. Like instead of like storing them in DB, so first we are trying to put in this application dot properties file and see the process. Like so, since for that, so we have used this validator dot rules, and we have like two validation rules. One is this validation rule is for like the entire structure. So if I open this validation rule one in the validation rule one, so this validation is only just performing like if the amount is less than zero, so we should throw the exception. The amount cannot be negative. That is the thing which we have wrote the code, the entire logic. The logic is simple. Like we are writing only like comparing in the checking if condition. If the amount is less than zero, so we are taking the validation exception class, and from that we are trying to throw the that validation exception. So let us see like how it has implemented. So the first validation class we have used is this validator rule one. If you can see here, this is validator rule one, and how it was reading means there is the enum class actually in the configuration constants actually. Yeah, so how the flow is happening is here. So wherever like we have declared like here like this like valid rule one, valid rule one dot class. So like it is mapping. So we are mapping this string to this class, this valid rule one with the valid rule one dot class, and we are creating a instance for this validator class and mapping this string to this class. So the entire code was wrote like this. And if you go to the controller, like let us see like how exactly the flow is happening here. Actually, one code has commented like where we are not reading from the things like we are not reading from the application dot properties as well. Like that is the second step stage. So now let us I will show you the flow like exactly like for let us check for the validation rule one, where we have validation rule one as well as the uh, and the duplicate transaction, as well as like if the amount is less than zero. These are the two scenarios, and the third scenario is where we are only performing threshold transaction, like for particular for last 10 minutes, for last n minutes, we should only perform these many transactions. For last 10 minutes we should only perform n transactions, I mean sorry, some z transactions. So if we are trying to do more than that, more than those transactions in the last 5 minutes, suppose if the user is trying to do more than z transactions in the last 5 minutes, he is trying to do, so let us say the value is 3 transactions, like the user has shown to do in the last 5 minutes 3 transactions, and if he is trying to do more than 3 transactions, we should throw the error, like since uh, the limit has already reached, so you should wait for a few minutes or try again after some time. So that's the exception we should throw. So these are the three. Entirely we are working on the validator framework, and these are the different validations, and these are different business logics are required from the client. So I will go to the now controller class, and I have explained this at the rate SL4J. This is for used for logging purpose. So without creating or writing a statement like logger equals to the that class entirely, using this annotation we can directly use that log.info in whatever the class required. We can directly print the log statement here. So log.info is better because it will give the exact information, correct information, entire log of the entire in the method. Okay. So now we'll see the flow how it is happening. So this is the payment controller where we are trying to map the request, payment request to the payment request DAO. So every time we always convert the Pojo classes into the DTO. So always uh, in between the layers, we should not directly, the data should not directly contact it. So there should be other thing in order to communicate with the layers. So this poser should not directly react or I mean link with the controller and do the actions. So there should be another class so that it will be act as a mediator between the layers to communicate. So that is why we are using the payment request DTO, where this payment request poser class is mapped. For that we are using the model mapper, and we can use this by adding the pom.xml. In pom.xml file, if you add the dependency, and yeah, here we have added that dependency for the model mapper class. If you can see here, yeah, here we have used the dependency so that we can directly use that. Now in the app configuration, actually we are configuring it as well to use that in the use that as an object in the required class. So if you go to controller, so here we are mapping the that Pojo class into the payment request DTO. Now the payment request DTO can communicate with the layers, that is service layer and with the other layer, DAO layer. Yeah. So now here we have done like simple just mapping here, and from that here like the model mapper, now it's we are going to call the method validation. We are going to do the validations here. So for that we need to inject the payment service class. So here we are trying to do the constructor injection. As you can see here, we are doing for the payment control class this dot payment service equals to payment service. We are doing the constructor injection. Constructor injection is better when compared to the setter injection because we are declaring it in the constructor. So whenever the object is going to created in this construct in this for this class, so whenever the constructor is called, so the object is going to initialized, right? Since like we are declaring in the constructor. And see here in this validate and process payment, so we are going to implement the method. So we'll go there. So what we have written here, let us check entirely. So the one thing, as I said before, like is the first stage is reading from the application or properties. So if you want to read that validator rules, those rules like right, what were in validation rule one and the duplicate transaction. So if you want to read any value from the application or properties into the class, so by using the at the rate value annotation and by doing like this and declaring it as like validator dot rules, like what we have declared in the this application local dot properties file, we are declare like validator dot rules equals to the validator rule one duplicate transaction check. So for that, in the payment service MPL, so we are reading that by using the iterate value annotation, so it is going to understand that put those validator dot rules, what is the present in it, whatever the present in it. So we are going to assign to this variable private string validator rules. So from there we can read it, and from that like here you can see right like validator rules. So like from validator rules we got that value, and from using the using split, so we can split the like how many strings are present, like how many duplicate, how many validations are present. We can split those rules and we are storing in the string, and from there like we are using the like for loop iteration, so that we can get each rule, and each rule can be validated by calling this trigger validation rule. So this is the first step. So this already is done. So I have commented that code in it here. This is the first step. As I have said, like we are going to improve our code like step by step. One is like in writing code from application or properties. So which I have shown you so far is like so we are reading from the application or properties. So like if sometime again like after some time like if anything is need to be added, so it's going to be a problem like always reading from the application or properties, like it's not a good way of doing the code. Like in future, if we have changed that any other value, and again after during the deployment again we should again add it, and again we add that a new validation and add that in the application or properties file, and again entire thing we need to deploy, right? So like it is going to be a troubleshoot for us, right? Like if again if something is to be removed, like if something is not to be removed, then it's going to be a problem. So like this is the first step, like reading from the application or properties. So to overcome all these things, like we are going to read from the database. That is the second step. So where we do read from the database. So this is how here like we are reading from the applicational properties using either value annotation, and from using like some for loop, so we iterating those, we are getting the each rule in it. And from here if you go to this trigger validation rule method, if you go here, so here what we are doing is, so we are getting to those rule here, we are trimming like if any other space is present. So here what is happening, if you can see here, we are going to get the this instance for this class. So if you go here valid enum dot get class name, so this is going to map, right? If you can see it, if you open this validator class enum, so if you get we are going to get validator rule one, right? That class name validator rule one, which is a string, so that is going to map. So finally here we are going to get an instance for that class, okay? And we are trying to like throw the one exception as well, like if it is not present, like if it is null, that means like that validator class is not present. Suppose if it is not mapped correctly, or else if you are given some different name in the enum class, and one thing that is present in the application dot properties file is a different name. So if those two things are different, then in that case like validator class is going to get null. So to overcome that issue, if you want to throw right that exception, like we need to know, like since we are getting that issue, So we'll be throwing like error that we are going to print the log statement like this validator class or that instance are not found. And like if the these are present, like if the so validator class is present, validator class is means like here the what is the validation rule that we have mentioned in the application or properties file, the class present, the class for it, if it is a present, that is what we are saying here. If validation class not equals to null, so get the bean. So there is already a class and there is already a bean for this. So we are going to get that bean. Application dot get bean. It is a validator instance. This is the instance. It's here. So validator class. So how the bean it is going to create it means you can see in the valid renum. Right. So here we are already declaring like a validator rule one dot class, right? And if you go to here validator rule one dot class, validator rule one dot class. Here we are declaring the class as at the rate service. So whenever we declare at the rate service means this is annotation, the Spring is going to create the object for us, right? The Spring is going to create the object for us. So that is how we are. The Spring is going to create the object, and in the this service IMPL class, the service IMPL class, so we are going to get that bean. So this is like a dependency lookup. Since like Spring is already created the object for us, so we are going to go there and call that bean. So using application context dot get bean, we are going to get the bean for that class. So how the bean is getting is we can see here like we have used for the at the rate validator one, we have used at the rate service. So that's why the Spring is going to create the object for that class. Now we have wrote like the conditions. So if validator is not null, so like the object is created and here we are saying the reference of the class if it is not null. So we are going to validate it. So what is the present here in the valid? Let us see. I'm going to open the declaration. So we have already declared. So this is the one thing, right? There are three validations we are performing entirely. One is the duplicate transaction, one is validation rule, and the other is the payment attempt threshold check. So here, whenever we use the validator rule, one is about only checking some like if the amount is less than zero. That is the validator rule one. We are checking that. So if the amount is less than zero, first it will pass these three validators, three rules. One is validator rule one, other one is the duplicate transaction check, other one is the third one is the payment threshold value. So in this here, if the amount is less than zero, we are going to throw the exception. So we have wrote the logic here, like we have used the validator class, one validation exception, and this is the error code, and we are throwing the error message and the status as well. So let us try to run the application and we'll see whether we are throwing this exception correctly or not. Run as Spring Boot app. It's loading. What happened? Yeah, it's I think taking some time. Slow. Is there a system? What happened? The following properly is finished. Okay. So actually, I have added the Redis configuration. Yeah, we can see here. These are the things like actually before loading the application, we are calling these validation rules. That is how we have done means like using the at the rate post construct annotation. we can load these validation these rules while loading the application. While starting the server itself, we can load these rules. If we can go to this validator dow impl, I could show you here how exactly they have done. Means we have used like a post construct annotation so that it will be loaded during the application. Like while the application is started, the these rules are going to like loaded in this validator class. Okay, in this activator rules. So if I could search, okay, mm, where we have wrote that code means in the payment controller. To go here, let us search for the post construct. I think we are accessing files here. If you find no issue, yeah, here in payment service IMPL, how we are doing means, see, whenever uh, the class is going to be loaded, when the application started, the objects are going to be created, right, for these all the classes. So in the same way here, by using a post construct annotation, we are going to load those validator rules here. Okay, so by this way, like it will be loading, like whenever the application has started itself, when the application is started, all the rules will be, like all the validator rules will be loaded by using a post construct annotation here. Okay, if you go to this load validator rules, it is present. Okay, now first let us check for the duplicate, or let us check for the validator rule one, that is for the if the amount is less than 0. So let's go here and we'll try to give the negative value. This actually we should, the transaction reference should be always unique. So let's go and here give the amount. Where is the amount? So here we are, let's give the minus value here, minus 1.0, and here give the transaction reference 117. Now if I click on send here, so what will happen, we'll see here. So here you can see error code is 1001 and error message is amount cannot be negative, please correct it. This is the exception, this is the error code message we are throwing. So there are three validations. In the validation framework we are following three validations, right? One is like the validation rule one, which is like the entire structure. So in that we have is that if the amount is less than 0, so we are trying to through the exception. So it is going to call this exception, and we are whenever like from, if you go to from controller, and if you can go to controller, yeah, here controller, we go to valid process payment, and from this here if you go to the valid process payment, so it will come here and it will start for these rules. Okay, from these rules we will be getting the each rule, and it will go to the trickle validation rule method. We'll get the class, and the bean will be created. We are going to get the bean first, we are going to go and call bean, and here we are having validator rule, and here we are going to call the first one is that sorry, the validator rule. uh, yeah, in the validator rule, in the validate, we have valid rule 1, which is the first thing which we are checking, and here it comes here, if the amount is less than 0, so it will throw this exception, which is the validation exception. So by using the how we are doing is by using the validation exception handler, there is the controller advice actually, validation exception handler, where we can by because of this we are able to, you know, send the response through the error code in the error message exactly, only because of this validation exception. And by using the address controller advice, we can do this. We can throw this. It is going to be understand and come here by using here a direct exception handler. It is going to identify it and get that error code which we have written in the enum class, that error code and the error message. And this is the response entity, entire thing which we are going to throw and in the response body. Okay. This is the first validation rule 1 which we have checking. And the second validation rule is, if it is a duplicate transaction, we should throw that if this user using the same transaction reference ID, if we can go to here, if we can go here and here, yeah, um, the yeah, if we are using the like same transaction reference, we should throw, because the transaction reference should be always unique, and in the database we have already set it as like it should be the unique. And whenever if the user, the client, so trying to use the same transaction reference again, like for inserting this data, so we should throw the exception like already the transaction reference ID is present for this, so we should throw the exception. So in the same way we have in the application, if you go to application dot local dot properties, we have the duplication transaction check. So reading from the no application dot properties, instead of reading from the application dot properties, we are reading from the database actually these validation rules and loading it when the application gets started. How it is happening here means, so whenever we have used the actual post construct, because of that only, so we are able to load it whenever the application gets started. To go to here in the payment service MPL, as we have already shown, like by using this post construct annotation, we are calling like activate validator rules equals to validator rules dot load validator, load active validator rules. So if you open go and implementation for this, here you can see we are firing a query where like select validator name from validation rules is active equals to true. That means like the validation rule is active and order by some priority, we are having some priority and doing ascending order. So here you can see, so already in the database actually, if you go database, I show you in the validation dot rules. If you go here, if I can run this query for you, here you can see we have valid rule 1 duplicate transaction check, and this is the payment attempt threshold check. These are the different validators we have, and we have given like each priority. So this should be come first, and after that this should be the second, and this should be the third. So these are the three priorities which you have set it, right? Okay, so based on that, from the database we are firing this, and what happening is, so we are going to get this value and here it is going to return this active validate rules. And in the payment service AMPL, since we are using the direct post construct, whenever like the object this class is loaded, uh, this post construct also will be called, and this in the activate rule validator rules we are going to have these three validations: duplicate transaction check, and other remaining two, which are uh, valid rule 1 and payment return threshold check. These are the three validation rules which we are going to load it when the application gets started by using a direct post construct annotation. So here in this field, in the activate validator rules, we are going to get those three validator rules, right? As you can see here, we are storing it in a list actually. These three things, activate validator rules, we are storing them, and we are going to do for each iteration, activate validator rules for each iteration, and doing this validation for three different classes. Now let us check for the second case. Like if we are trying to perform the using the same transaction reference, and whether we are going to get throwing the duplicate transaction or not. So let us go here. We'll use this same merchant transaction reference. This should be always unique. So this is already present in the database. And again, like if he's again trying to create, if he again trying to insert this same data in the database, it should throw an exception like the result, the data, the ID is already present in the database. So let us now see, we'll hit this call transaction and we'll check where we are going to get the. So first let us remove this, since we have priority given as 0 for the negative amount value. Let us try to keep it as positive, and let us click on send here. Yeah, okay. Okay. Now let us try to click on send here now. Yeah, see here. Before, like since already the exception is thrown, like the insert is not recorded for that amount negative value. So now here we have given a positive value amount, and now we have given the same transaction reference again. As you can see here, we have got the error code and the error message. If you go to the database, we check for this transaction, merchant transaction reference 117, right? Merchant payment request 117. As you can see here, we have got this 117. So again, if you are trying to hit the same with the same transaction reference, it should throw the duplicate exception, duplicate transaction, right? Yeah, you can see here record already exists for this transaction. Yeah, so this is the two validations which we have I have given like on the demo. Those are one is for the amount is less than 0, we should throw the exception, and the other is if you are trying to use the same merchant transaction reference, we should throw the an error, which is like the record is already present. Okay, yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.